Yash Raj Films and Hrithik Roshan weren't always a franchise thing. When Hrithik Mania first hit the scene back in the year 2000, YRF was just scrambling to land him. For YRF's 2002 roster, they approached the leads of Kahona Piahe, a movie that did infamous battle with their own release that only managed to win the box office war by international margins. Hrithik and Amisha were both approached to be leads. Amisha flat out stated she didn't want to work with Ali, while Hrithik agreed to work with his friend. Muchi Doste Kurogi infamously bombed critically and commercially. Couple this with a lot of misfires on Hrithik's account equated to Hrithik Mania turning into Hrithik what the hell happened. The film was outdated. Most people found the film boring except for the nostalgia grab of a song. After that, Hrithik refused to work with YRF, except if the project would be helmed by Aditya or Yash Chopra. He even went as far to say that Veer Zara, directed by the latter, was his favorite movie. What expedited Hrithik to YRF was Lakshya failing at the box office. Remember, in the last video, we see that it had the highest budget among 2004 releases, but promptly got beaten out by less expensive offerings like the original Dhoom. Yash nor Aditya had any movies in the pipeline to cast Hrithik in. In fact, they were busy overseeing the creation of the company's new production studio, which cost money. Dhoom was the movie that made a lot of it, and look what it did for John's career, who was the villain. So while not exactly a Chopra directorial, the Dhoom brand was leveraged as an incentive for Hrithik to come on board as the new villain. Around that time, Hrithik lost out on Dawn to Shah Rukh Khan. The official reasoning by director, not yet an actor, foreign actor, was that he wanted a more mature actor to helm the remake, but I like to think he didn't want to risk another flop at the box office. Thus, this opened the door for Hrithik to have dates for a late 2006 release. It felt like just yesterday when I was a kid spending quarters in Albion Mall and inevitably getting ripped off by that card box. The service desk might tell you they're gonna mail you the dollar that the machine swallowed up without coughing up a card, but there's a reason they don't just give you that dollar then and there. When it comes to your local mall, families typically have their designated entrance and exit. Our point of entry and exit to haul stuff out to pack into barrels to ship back to Trinidad was the food court, and that's exactly where I saw it. Coming soon to Albion Cinemas, Dhoom was officially getting a sequel. I didn't even know any movies were allowed to get sequels. You see, Dhoom 1 for me was peak Bollywood action fiction. It had bikes, backflips, and a warm action-packed story. Every person in the cast was awesome. Yes, that means you too. Dhoom's popularity bled into 2005, so the fact that it was getting a sequel in really quick turnaround time was simply unheard of. So you better believe I was in theaters, ready to watch the second installment of a franchise that was gonna crash and burn in the next movie. This movie starts off with its best scene. It's like the ending set piece of a better movie. Wanna know how to win over an Indian audience? Just have an Indian guy give the British some sort of setback. I'm telling you, it's gonna work. And what is a better setback than stealing the Queen's crown? Listen, Meghan Markle was unavailable. She was busy doing shows no one has even heard of. But don't worry, Hrithik Roshan has landed on Prince Harry's birthday, and boy did they really swing for the fences with having Hrithik play both this new thief and the Queen. Now, even though this scene is chock full of some cartoonish action, like why are they charging at him while firing their guns and at the same time not bothering to change the line of fire? It's almost like guns are useless in this movie. He knocks down one guard, but in the very next shot, he does a wired backflip on the previously knocked down guard. But does it really matter? This opening scene has great pacing, it's fun, and serves as a pretty cool introduction to Mr. A. For the first time audiences back in 2006 who had yet to see the rest of this movie, the excitement was at an all-time high, and the hype was being met. We had yet to see the rest of the movie, and the sky really felt like the limit. Even the title song got a new flair and touch. You can say it had a couple more screws in it. Returning from Dhoom 1 is the character Uday Chopra was born to play, and low-key the main character of this movie. I say that because when I really think about it, boy does he occupy a lot of time on the screen. And it gets old pretty quick. He just jokes around this entire movie. Nothing about his garage, prior friends, ambitions, or even his personality from the first movie returns. If you thought he was incompetent in the first movie, boy does he take it to new heights in this one, because he literally just got caught. I just need to know, what was his plan for getting off the boat if they hadn't stopped him? Suddenly the water type comes out of the lake. They really never give this guy a bike. You think he would be rocking the Suzuki GX900? But nah, he was just underwater using dive with a jet ski rental. Now, unlike Hrithik, YRF's MO for bringing him into this movie was just to bridge continuity with the first film. The director did not like him, and the studio had Hrithik's ego they had to stroke. So I mean, someone had to get the short end of the stick. Bad timing too, because he had to simultaneously shoot this movie with Guru, in which he was like 70 years old for most of the movie and he had to gain weight to complete the look. Abhishek only did this movie since they got his future wife employed, and they basically told him he owed them for the first movie. This is like the last time in the franchise the movie gave a shit about either of these characters. The new dynamic they have isn't really as cohesive as the first movie when they were still figuring it out. Now it's to the point that Jin mentions he has to save him for his blunders instead of catching the thief. Sweetie calls, still barefoot but this time pregnant, cause even though they deleted the sex scene from Doom 1, canonically it still happened. They swiftly and easily dispatch of all the goons who were probably all named Rohit, and you know, it really looks like we have a show in store here. I mean, imagine it's 2006, we don't know the rest of the movie. Like the train scene, the opening credits, and this scene. It looks like we have a show here. Back at a shitty apartment set because they didn't want to rebuild the nice house from the first movie. Sweetie is the first of many character assassinations since she's just a special appearance in this movie. She's pregnant, and boy do they want you to know that. She doesn't even talk in Bengali when she's mad like in the first movie. This is the first scene of the movie where things just start to get weird. So Ali brings up the idea of Jay having an affair, and for some reason everybody in the room somehow entertains the idea. Sweetie even co-signs on it, and this leads to the introduction of ACP Shonali Bose. She can't miss and neither can I, but unfortunately she works in a toxic workplace environment. She lets her intrusive thoughts win and accidentally handcuffs herself as Ali walks in and does the daydream thing. Now, if you weren't sold on Ali in comedy, this scene tries its hardest to do so. And I guess because they wanted to recreate the same jokes from the first movie, we have one of 3 bizarre romances in this film, and this is the first one. We find out these 2 ACPs were something of an item, where she was a 10 out of 10, he fumbled. We've all been there, bro. So, gonna let you in on a little spoiler here. This movie goes to extra lengths to make sure everybody looks like shitty people, so Hrithik could look more lovely in comparison. Like, he really didn't have the balls to be a full-on villain like John, so they transferred villain attributes onto the cops, aka the good guys. Whether or not you think this is a good direction to take the series, it's not. The end result just leaves us with a bitter taste in our mouths. The pretty innocent and likable protagonist from the first movie is cheating on his pregnant wife, which is bizarre since in the first movie he really gave her all the time of the day unless he had a case he needed to work on. Even if you are into this, there's no payoff either. That's kind of how it goes now. Things just happen for no real rhyme or reason, at least from a logical storytelling perspective. I'm not going to cover every single head scratcher in this movie, but you know, catch that on Patreon. So while the movie cannot give less of a shit when the A-team is on screen, when it flips back to Hrithik, all of a sudden the movie takes itself seriously and actually tries to be engaging. But they didn't even do that right, because while they knock it out of the park with Hrithik disguised as a statue, everyone else just becomes blind, deaf, and dumb during this heist. It's the combination of having Hrithik as a cool, flawless character and not having to construct action scenes any better. I mean, that's cool and all, but it's not really that interesting, and makes everyone else boring while making Hrithik not as badass as John, since the only reason he succeeds is because everyone else is stupid now. And none of the 15 guards see this very obvious robotics lab experiment. He replaces the diamond with a hologram that clearly gets interrupted by these guys just walking in a circle. None of the armed officers outside have any idea the cleaning staff was not supposed to be working. They don't even see the very obvious secret of the ooze, while Ali takes a million years to flip over the Mr. A card. But hey, everyone being stupid makes it easier for Hrithik to escape on rollerblades. This was done to kind of shy away from the negative influences Doom played on bike culture and allowed Mr. A to be more distinct from Kabir. Boy used to win races with the Suzuki Bandit 1200S, which by this universe's logic can go up to 260 kilometers an hour, while rollerblades can typically go up to 30 kilometers an hour. It's motorbike versus wheelies, but in this scene it literally feels like Ali is walking. Like, yeah, shit gets in his way, but he never catches up to Mr. A. Once, even before the Coca-Cola magnet thing happens. Mr. A is like Sonic the Hedgehog with these rollerblades, while Ali is just like A-Train without his speed. While Ali's thing was racing, Jay's thing was shooting, but his efforts are futile for one simple reason. They were not about to have Hrithik Roshan lose to anyone, let alone Abhishek Bachchan in this movie. Not even once, because of something called the no-lose rule. This is my copy of the novelization of the film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and if you ever saw the cover of this book, you understand why I never keep it on. But it brings up a very important line. If you play the punching bag, it's gonna have a psychological effect on how the audience perceives you. I mean, that's obviously not verbatim, but you get me. For a more Hollywood example, look at The Rock or Steven Seagal, the most famous examples of crafting roles to always look badass while never losing a fight. Couple that with the fact that Hrithik sells more cans of Coke than Abhishek sells Ford Fiestas means that when Hrithik gave significant input for the character of Mr. A, his inspirations being Bruce Willis, Pierce Brosnan, and Jay Dixit's dad, those inputs are honored and explored despite not being of villain quality, which is why he won the Filmfare Award for Best Actor while not being nominated for Best Villain. So Hrithik gets to be Pierce Brosnan and Abhishek gets to be Roger Moore, the guy with the most screen time out of everybody in this trilogy, who previously held his own against Kabir, is now the worst possible shot I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, this is the fate of all the action scenes now. It's no longer an even contest, and you know how it's gonna play out. The thief does some dodgy escape methods that would probably not work in real life, while the buddy cops just suck now. And you bullshit the rest of the movie till the end. I mean, Hrithik gets to look cool and all, that's chill, but it's not really interesting in the terms of having stakes and weight in the story, compared to the war of attrition that was the original Doom. But unlike the original Doom, the villain gets to have a love interest now. I originally thought Trini was based off of Megan Fox from Transformers, but then after thinking about it for more than 2 seconds, I realized this movie came first, and wow!
Are you like checking me out?
This is genuinely the worst character in the first 2 movies. This woman cannot act to save her life, and I think everyone knew that since she was on a very strict diet to lose weight and got bronzed up like she's Teddy from Good Luck Charlie. But that doesn't save her from her own cringe. You don't get either Hrithik or Aishwarya to be full-on villains since they have products to sell.
For 2 months, I've been using Fair and Lovely. It lightens the color of the skin in a natural and gentle way.
Really? But Anshul didn't feel it. She didn't feel beautiful, and she said that it was her skin wasn't light.
I would like to believe it's not a community thing and it's an individual thing. I think, you know, it's about just being comfortable in your skin.
Trini is revealed to be the final member of the A-Team, and Jay warns that Mr. A would kill her if he finds out that she is working for him. And since the last movie concluded in Goa, it makes sense that this one is headed to Brazil. This is when we are introduced to Monali, still somehow the best twin of the franchise. And luckily for Ali, she is the exact opposite of Shonali, or this movie didn't want any overlap since it feels like these 2 guys are with the same chick. Thus begins the dumbest romance of the 3, and it was not easy to win that contest. She's in the movie for the rest of it, and I don't even know if she knows what's going on. Like, is she even aware of the clear and present danger? Her and Ali don't even understand each other fully, and in a deleted scene, she leaves with Jay to go out. Like, at this point, they could have just brought back Dharmendra. It really would have been better than whatever this is. Like, the only way I could get behind this is if I was best friends with Uday here, but I am not the director of this movie. Meanwhile, Trini just proves she's not like the other girls since she doesn't eat salad.
Can't have typically girly conversations. I mean,
She prefers
the dress, the bag, the hairstyle.
Get over this. She doesn't eat salad. She's like, what the hell is this? She prefers those supermarket frozen chicken burgers that kind of taste nasty, but God forbid it's a salad. So now this movie with the subtitle Back in Action is now committed to being a romance movie for the second half. These 2 say the most basic lines. I mean, respect to Hrithik, he's trying to make it work better than Senorita Awesome over here. Meanwhile, Jay and Ali legitimately do nothing for the second half. I gotta say, the comedy worked better when Bapasha was Shonali, which itself was a downgrade from the comedy they had in the first movie. So I'm just gonna skip over these parts. They're not funny, everything falls flat. I hate this scene so much. At 6 a.m. sharp, here comes Hrithik still doing that walk. After one night, he's super down to be honest and devotes his entire life to Michaela. He's known her for a grand total of 2 days and completely trusts her 100% now. I mean, I don't blame him, just look at her. And it's very clear the movie is crushing 2 birds with 1 stone by capitalizing on this pairing, which also allows them to not be doing villain things. And just like that, they are in a relationship now. I know that because they switch foods. Oh man, see how different she is now? She's eating pasta. Jay and Aryan just run into each other and they try to recreate the cop villain dynamic from the first movie, but that movie actually invested in both characters, which is why it worked. This time around it falls flat because they clearly don't give a shit about this guy. This movie tries to double down on being a romance movie in the second half, as these 2 have to flat out tell the audience that every story should be a love story, even though Jay Dixit was just reading a book about the civil rights movement for no reason at all. Jay might reverse his promise of amnesty for Selena Kyle. He says she has to make a choice between a thief she can trust and a cop she can't. Like, why are you saying this? How does this get you towards your goal? How do you know she can't trust him? You just previously mentioned he might kill her. And why are you saying she can't trust you? That doesn't make any sense. Is that the script over there? I think that's the script. Oh wait, no, it's Ali. He sees this and straight up quits the case and wants to leave the country. Like, I guess he doesn't care about being a police officer anymore. And I'm guessing he's giving up on Monali. Like, what? What are these two lovers? They have a heart-to-heart to kind of remind the audience that these two were once respectable in the last film. And I'm skipping the rest of the scene. Bonnie and Clyde are now at a museum where the next heist is gonna go down. Jennifer Check brings up the idea of robbing a dinosaur, but that sounds way too exciting for this movie. The real target is this shitty coin prop that they have out in the museum. These coins are apparently priceless, even though they have no protective glass on them. Like, random gems worth like $400 at the ROM are sealed off, and you expect me to believe these coins are priceless and are just there? Suneri snitches on Aryan, but he catches her in 4K. He starts to tease that everyone has to die sometime. He tries to act like he's boring, even though the movie has done nothing but show us how cool he is, and the two decide to party. I should probably bring up the biggest problem of the movie: the pacing. It is crazy how much time they discuss things that never matter and rush through important moments that should. For a good portion of the dialogue, I can't help but feel that this is all improv, but the sad thing is that I know it's probably not. This movie makes another attempt at J. Dixit versus Mr. A, but this is clearly not Butcher versus Homelander. Nothing this movie presents is built up particularly well, so nothing feels earned. Hell, when Jay and Kabir spoke in the last movie, they actually made efforts to evade each other when necessary, so there was tension. The reason that this is a reoccurring problem is that it ruins the tension of a scene if I, as a viewer, am unsure of our protagonist's chance of succeeding, and this goes both ways. No matter if you prefer one side over the other, you know the A-listers aren't killing anyone, and at the same time, neither are the non-A-listers. But for what it's worth, this is the one time in the movie you get to know Mr. A. All the other times it's just a sappy love story. Speaking of which, we got some insane choreography in this random music number. I mean, yeah, I guess you gotta do a song, because the last movie did a grand song, but at least that was written into the plot. At this point, you can see where the wind is blowing. This isn't an action movie anymore. This is just three stupid ass love stories complemented by great sound design, songs, and choreography. Even though all the cards were exposed the previous night, the movie gets serious again. But who are we kidding? We all know Hrithik Roshan is not gunning down Aishwarya Rai. It would be way more interesting if he did, but this guy ain't built like that. The final robbery just happens because everyone else looked away when the world's shittiest CGI bugs came onto the scene. He didn't even need a partner for this. I think the less said about this whole scene, the better. Jay, in another form of character regression, goes to the safe house that is obviously empty.
Hello?
This is when the final chase happens in South Africa, cause that's where they shot the ending. We see Aryan and Michaela are being tailed by a chopper. We are so back. This scene kicks ass. Jay and Ali come out of a chopper and give chase through a tunnel, and honestly, this is what the entire movie should have been about. We see Jay and Ali have no problem speeding up and holding their own, as both the heroes and villains exchange counters with no problems. This scene has great lighting, it's edited fairly well, has stakes, conflict, and is clearly trying to make up for the first chase scene being kind of bad. The movie tries to make Jade the main character again so the scene can have conflict as the two go at it on bikes. They charge at each other all Mission Impossible 2 style, but Aryan drives off over a cliff. Jay for some reason walks up instead of riding his bike and jumps off to catch him midair. As the two white guys who did the stunt finally land, Aryan punches Jay in the face, which causes him to take off his glasses like he's Shadow the Hedgehog. For some reason, the ending fight scene is worse in this movie than the last one. Mr. A gets kicked down, but he does like this Ninjago move to recover. All of a sudden, Ali shoots his gun. I didn't even know he knew how to use that. Since off screen he managed to catch Suneri, and I would have paid $100 to see how that scene would have played out instead. So even though Aryan was trying to kill these people like 10 minutes ago, they allow him to monologue about love and loving someone so much you could take their life. Suneri shoots him with her pea shooter of a gun, claiming she did that because she loved him enough to take his life. Jay lets her free, claiming it's her punishment, and you know what, even though I shitted on this movie for becoming a romance and killing its pacing in the second half, it's a solid way to go out. It cashes in on what the movie was foreshadowing and really brings home how end of the road the journey has become. Mr. A went out on his own terms by the woman he loved. Suneri doesn't get to go to jail at the cost of the man she loved. Jay does succeed at eliminating Mr. A with his second mole operation, and Ali managed to be useful. Turns out there were actually consequences, and even though I made fun of the cartoonish action, bland characters, and character assassinations, it looks like this movie proved me wrong. This was pretty well built up, like, ah man, what an ending. Huh, there's still more time left in the movie. I'm sure they're gonna spend it to resolve whatever this situation was. The ending is the biggest asshole I've ever seen in my life. So somehow Ritik survived this fall. These three parties each found their way to Fiji. Aryan and Scenario are now good people because Ritik just said that out of nowhere, even though they have blood on their hands. Jay and Ali stayed in Fiji for 6 months. Guy probably missed the birth of his child. Now, despite these two, mainly Ritik being responsible for potentially millions of dollars of damage, people losing their lives, breaking Sean Lily's leg, wasting 7 months of Jay and Ali's time, and trying to kill both of them, Jay just lets them go as some Disney music plays since the movie wants to hammer home that this is a good thing for some reason, and ultimately it's a love story. Who cares? There is no logical reason why he would spare them and give them mercy. So yeah, this is just contract clauses shining oh so bright. Jay leaves and calls Ali. Also, Mona Lee is here for some reason, and it's like, why was she here for 6 months too? What the hell? Did this guy turn out to be the biggest winner out of everyone? Jay says they have to return to India for their next case, which is in Mumbai. So of course the next movie starts off 16 years ago in Chicago. This movie has logic just completely thrown out the window for the sake of things looking cool, but hey, I still like it. Not everything has to be well crafted to be enjoyable. Even though this movie was a head scratcher to most critics, audiences loved it nonetheless and saw this film in the masses, even though it probably collectively lowered the IQ of the audience as a whole, with studios now knowing you can just get away with making a dumb action movie with hot women and it'll sell. You will never in your life meet anybody who doesn't say Ritik is the best part of this movie. I mean, that's no surprise. Like the favorite child turning out to be the most successful. Honestly, I think this movie should have just been about Mr. A traveling the world and robbing different cities, eventually leading up to the grand finale of robbing the queen's crown. Ritik is like that really cool drawing you cooked up on a lined piece of paper. Like, yeah, it's great, but you really wish it was drawn on a better canvas. After Doom 2, Ritik has stated he wanted to play the character again, so much so that the character of Aryan never left him. The movie definitely left the door open for a sequel that could run it back with the same cast, but I feel if they did that, it would just expose the bad writing of this movie, which is ironic since the next movie is directed by the same guy who wrote this one. I can't say this enough because I genuinely believe it. I've been thinking about this since 2006. He was the hero as Krish, and in Doom 2 he should have been a full-on villain instead of an anti-hero. It would have been way more groundbreaking than this James Bond archetype he portrayed. I mean, it's still cool, but you know, the potential was there. Take the risk, my guy. The sound design is also well thought out, perfectly complementing the killer background music and soundtrack. This also applies to the first movie, but in this movie, it's way better. I obviously can't showcase the music, which is kind of why I don't really talk about those core aspects in both of these movies, but trust me, they're really great. I've had a lot of great memories listening to these songs. We used to sing all the songs from these movies on our way home from school. This movie's biggest weapon and unsung hero is Sheena from DDLJ. Yes, the woman who is not casual styled the entire cast, and combined with models, great visuals, and lighting, gives the movie the most Gen Z award for best aesthetic. It's for this reason more women particularly like the second movie over the first one, considering the romance and the style. It's kind of like a magazine put to film. Now that may sound like a backhanded compliment. No surprise at this point, I don't think this movie does well as a sequel to Doom. The returning characters kind of got shat on. That New Year's party was probably the last good day of their lives. Doom 2 easily could have been a traditional sequel in the same vein as Back to the Future 2 was to 1, but instead, it feels like the timeline was altered, or this is one of those multiverses where Ali, Jay, and Sweetie are just worse now. Also, Sheena is canonically in jail because she was arrested off screen after the events of Doom, and Ali just does not care anymore. Tonally, I think this film just tries to do way too many things without committing to one. Because Ritik does not get to be like a complete James Bond type of character, and Abhishek doesn't get to be a complete Officer Tenpenny. There's no cohesion, and the first movie had cohesion. The Uday Chopra as Ali is the definition of doing too much. I get he's a studio owner's son, and they really wanted to make this guy happen, but he's still better portrayed in the first movie. He honestly should have still been with Sheena, and the counter argument to this is Ali is meant to be a playboy in every movie and have a Bond girl, but the same Joe joke getting repeated again and again doesn't make it funnier. Maybe like once it would be fine, but like you can make some new material, guys. To really put a pin in it, not serving returning characters any justice alienates the people who like these characters. You know, like some people who put these characters in the S tier, and further alienates people who didn't like these characters to begin with. The whole switch from Doom 1 to 2 feels exactly like Jak and Daxter to Jak 2, but at least in that series it made sense within the story. This best reflected how YRF viewed the cast this time around. In Doom 1, they framed the cast of that movie as a group of 5 underachievers that came together and made a hit in a very con-dominated industry. This movie is like, oh yeah, forget all of these people. You watch Doom for the bikes anyways. Look what we got. We got actual actors in this one. It's not a good thing that I don't have many positive things to say about everybody not named Rittik. For a movie that advertised these 5 characters and only had one that was made worthwhile, I think for that the movie fails at being a multi-starrer for that reason. Hell, half the time the movie doesn't even use Rittik all that well. This movie never feels like it can get over the fact that he's in this movie. I mean, the director's whole shtick up to this point was making movies starring Ali. I don't necessarily hate any of these actors. I just feel like everyone not named Rittik was wasted.
Well, I can't really figure out what he's working on. Oh, I know. Your wife.
It's kind of obvious they took the real life equation at play here and made fun of Abhishek for it, just so the audience can kind of point to this movie and laugh when the two did get married. Because of this, the Bachchans did not want that kiss scene in the theatrical cut. They apparently wanted this removed, claiming it would hurt the brand value of Abhishek and Aishwarya, their wedding, and their movie guru. I mean, they were not wrong. But I don't know how they thought they were going to get that request honored. The movie clearly did not care about this character. On the other side of the coin, I think Aishwarya is the worst character from the first 2 movies, and her performance is pitiful. A lot of the movie's problems only get worse when she enters the picture. The pacing practically kills itself when she got inserted. It was already announced she was going to be a villain, so the fact that this movie was trying to give her this Eva Mendes and Too Fast Too Furious undercover shtick just fails. Kind of funny how she ends up with Veron though. These two made better movies. This one is a joke. She actually has better chemistry with the ACP in this one. But Pasha Basu was completely wasted. Her characters were not that good either. They probably could have made her a progressive dead-eye cop character and just stick to that the entire movie, but instead they told her to live off oranges for 3 days and literally get 2 separate introductions. It would probably help this movie if her cop character had more of a dynamic with Aishwarya instead of all this Ali nonsense, but she's a stunner, best looking in the movie. Their entire cast of this movie promoted it for exactly 1 day. I have to imagine this is a result of a lot of frustration from everybody not named Rittik and Aishwarya. Rimi Sen also quit the franchise after what they did to her character. She actually probably got it the worst. I mean, she's pregnant and okayed being cheated on. This poor sweet woman. What did she ever do to oh shit. Well, those are my thoughts. I understand some watching this might really like Doom 2, and to that I say watch the movie Heat. But to give credit, I don't necessarily think it's a bad movie. It's just badly written and doesn't even reach its full potential. But hey, it's aesthetically pleasing. Superwoman said that in that one documentary. By the way, did you know my YouTube career started off because I was in one of her videos? She of course has since deleted it, but I was a part of history. But as for Doom 2, maybe I'm just spoiled by cops and robbers movies like Heat, or modern day remakes like The Town or Den of Thieves. These 3 movies should be the basis of a balanced and engaging cops versus robbers story. It's kind of a shame this movie came out before The Dark Knight. That was the infamous and shining example of a story that has its main emphasis on the villain while still retaining previous cast members and giving them justice. But that's a Christopher Nolan movie way out of the production studio's league. There's no way they'll ever attempt to copy a Nolan movie. That's just ridiculous, right?
In 2005, a group of local misfits won a costume contest at an 80s TV convention. These men promptly returned home and drank some beer. Today they survive as soldiers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-Team.